Hello everyone, it's Shari here today and I am going to be showing you how to make this Thanksgiving card with some colored glitter leaves. So the first thing I'm going to do is color my glitters. I just have a piece of the white pixie dust sparkle cardstock here and I'm going to be using alcohol inks to color this in some fall colors. So I'm just pulling out some colors here, and what I found is it's better to start with lighter ones because you can just increase the intensity by some more ink. It will soak into this paper slightly. It will move around a little bit, but it's not like Yupo paper where it just moves along the top quite so much. So I've pulled out lemonade, peach Bellini, and watermelon. And I also pulled out the sunshine, I believe it was, and Valencia, just for some darker ones if I want to add them in there. I'm also using this Tim Holtz tool that just sprays air. You could use a straw, but I'm using this in my videos so that I don't put my head in the way when I'm blowing it around. So a straw is just as easy. This just helps to where you can see what I'm doing. So I'm starting with the lightest color, which is the lemonade. And you can see I'm just putting some drops on there and spreading it out by using the air. And then I'm going to go in with my next color. This is the peach Bellini, which to me is more orangey than peach, but it does have a nice color that blends with that lemonade well. You want to move kind of quickly because, like I said, it will start to soak into this paper. It doesn't do it that quickly, but you do want to move it around before it gets too saturated in one spot. This is that darker sunshine color. Just wanted to see what kind of yellow that would give me. And then I'm just going to speed things up. So I'm going to color this whole piece with alcohol inks in these fall colors to kind of create a variegated fall palette, if you will. And then I'm going to cut the leaves out of this piece. So I'm just going to play around till the whole thing is covered and looks the way I want it to. You can see it's kind of splotchy in some places, but when you add more ink on top of ink you already have, it'll start to move around and blend some more. And you'll see here towards the end, once I have it all covered, I do go add some ink on top of the ink that's already there, and you'll see that those sort of harsh edges that you can see right now will blend away. So you can see here I'm adding a whole bunch of ink on top of what's already there, and then it'll blend a little more, and you don't have those harsh spots quite as much. Now, like I said before, this will soak into the paper a little bit, so you need to let it dry. You can see it's, especially on the edges, it soaks in. So once it is dry and all the alcohol is evaporated, then you can die cut. So don't try and die cut until everything is nice and dry. And I've just pulled out some of the stitch leaves dies. This is from both the large and the small set. And I just pulled out some sizes that's going to work with my card layout. And I'm just going to cut those out. I was trying to place them in places where the coloring on the leaves, you get different colors. You're not going to end up with a leaf that's all red or all orange or all yellow. So you can see just how pretty these look. And I'm going to go ahead and just cut as many leaves out of this piece as I can. I'm not going to use them all on this card, but I will just have them set aside for any future projects because there's no sense in that lovely piece of glittered colored cardstock going to waste. This will also allow me to pick the leaves I want based on their placement on my card and the colors. So I'm just going to set those aside, and I'm going to work on my sentiment. So I have the Scripty Thanks die, and I also have letters that spell out the word give, and these dies are from the Finley's ABC's die set. So I'm going to cut out the Scripty Thanks out of this brown glitter cardstock. This is from the Autumn Sparkle collection. So I'm just going to cut the thanks out of that. And then for the give part, I'm actually going to do a little dipped embossing technique. So I'm going to cut these out of paper bag cardstock to start with, and I've just cut a little strip here that's wide enough to cut all 4 letters out of. And then once I have those cut out, I'm lining them up on my grid mat so that they are nice and even. And then I'm going to pick them up with that piece of Post-it note tape you see there. I'm going to pick it up above sort of the halfway mark using my grid mat as a guide. And this is going to act as both a way to keep them in line and as a mask. So I'm going to do some embossing on this to make them look like I've dipped them in gold embossing. So I'm just going to take my clear embossing ink directly to the letters and give them a nice coat of ink. And this pad was actually very juicy, so some of this ink actually went under my Post-it note tape, so it left like a slightly line between the embossing, but I actually didn't mind the look, and you'll see here what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to pour on some gold embossing powder. You can just flick off any extra or use a paintbrush to get rid of any stray pieces that might be hanging off the side. Now I really actually like the look of a nice thick embossing, so I'm going to do the same thing again and put another layer of embossing powder on it. So I'm going to take my sticky clear embossing ink pad directly onto the embossing I've already done, same as before, and I'm going to pour another layer of embossing powder over top of it. So this will really make the coat of embossing really nice and even and thick. It looks like you've taken those letters and just sort of dipped them in this gold. So once I have heated up and melted all that with my heat tool, you can remove them from the tape, but of course wait until they are nice and cool so that you don't get a fingerprint in that embossing. And actually you could leave them on the tape. I just went ahead and pulled them off so you could see the look that I have here. You can also see that little line where my embossing ink kind of went under my tape, but I decided to leave it. I don't mind the look that it gives. So now I've got a quilted backdrop that I've just cut out of some Nina Solar White cardstock, and I'm going to mount this onto a white card base just to give it a tone-on-tone texture to the background. I really don't need the color to peek through those little openings. I just wanted the texture of the background. So I've taken my liquid glue and kind of gone between on the diagonal all those little openings to make sure I don't have any glue where it's going to squish out of those little holes. And I'm just going to make sure that is nice and stuck down to my card base. So here again, I'm lining up my letters, and this is where I said you could leave it stuck on that piece of tape. I just pulled it off so you could see the look that we were going for. But I'm going to stick it back on that piece of tape, and this will keep my letters in line and let me glue them down as if they were all one die cut. So I've put some liquid glue on the back of them. I'm going to line them up where I want them on my card, and then I can just pull that tape off. And then I will just add the dot of the eye separately. It would have been hard to get that off the tape, so that can be done at the end. Now for the scripty thanks, I want it to kind of be thicker, and I also want it to overlap those letters a little bit. So I'm going to make it a thick die cut by cutting this thanks out of two pieces, or cutting two more die cuts out of the paper bag cardstock, and I'm going to stack them to make them a thick sentiment. But I'm also going to show you a little trick. Because I want the sentiment to overlap the give part, I'm actually going to trim my bottom of my stack a little bit to where it fits snugly and it ends up even and nice and flat. So for this one that's going to be the back, I'm going to place it where I want it to be, and then I'm just going to take a pencil and mark where the E and the G overlap. So I know that I can trim off the top of that K and just part of that H, and this is going to be the back of my thanks, and I know that I can snugly put this up against that give and give it the illusion that it's overlapping without extra thickness right at those letters. So you can see that is how it's going to fit, and this will be the bottom layer. So I can just add this to the back of the two pieces I've already glued together. And now I've got a nice thick sentiment with the cutouts where it's going to fit around that sentiment above. And it will all be nice and flat now. Now it's time to place my leaves. So I've just played around with their placement and their colors, trying to get a design that I liked. Basically, I wanted 3 in the top right corner and 3 in the bottom left corner to kind of look like they're falling from one corner to the other diagonally. So I'm just messing with them to figure out which sizes fit and give the look that I want. And then I can go in and make sure I have the colors I want. Maybe I want to trade one out for another one that is a little more red than it is yellow. So now that I've got them where I want them, I'm just going to take some liquid glue and place them all down. You don't really need a lot of embellishment to this card because these sparkly leaves really give the pop that you want. But finally, I decided I wanted to add a couple sequins. So these are coppery sequins. I believe they're from the Entangled. They were just in my stash, so I placed a couple around, some of them overlapping the leaves, and now I'm just using a little bit of liquid glue and my tweezers to stick those down. And there is the finished card. Just look at that sparkle and shine. I really love these colored leaves on that glitter. It's awesome. And here's another look at that card. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.